Trump car tariffs are coming. A 25% tariff on imported cars isn't just going to hurt Mexico and Canada, it's going to hurt US automakers hard and ultimately US consumers.
What he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
Car prices would skyrocket by thousands of dollars. Dealership might struggle to sell new cars, and we could see another spike in used car prices. Why are these tariffs even being proposed now?
So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States.
Ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again.
Is this really about bringing jobs back to US, reducing trade deficits, or is there something else at play, like artificially devaluing the dollar or keeping Chinese automakers out of North America? And more importantly, who wins in this situation? Spoiler alert, it's not the US consumer. Let's break it all down step by step in this video. Before we dive in, I want to be clear, I'm not a political analyst, but having worked in the global automotive sector and have seen how major OEMs navigated Brexit trade disruptions, I'll be looking at this issue purely from an industry perspective. What are tariffs and how do they work? A tariff is essentially a tax on imported goods. The idea is simple. Make foreign products more expensive so domestic companies have a better chance of competing. But here's the catch. While tariffs are supposed to help local businesses, they almost always end up making things more expensive for everyday consumers. So who actually pays for these tariffs? Technically, the exporting company could absorb the cost, but more often than not, it's the importing company taking over these tariffs. And afterwards, they have two choices. Either they absorb these costs and take a hit on their profits or pass the cost on to the consumers. This means higher prices and taking a hit on their sale. And usually it's the second case where the companies are passing these costs on the consumers. Do tariffs actually work? Let's look at the history. Governments use tariffs to protect local industries, but do they actually work? Well, it's debatable. Let's take a look at two different scenarios. Country-specific tariffs. In cases where tariffs target a single country, manufacturers often shift productions elsewhere to bypass them. However, a positive development in such scenarios is that the prices still declines or the products improve due to improved efficiency. For example, when US imposed tariffs on Chinese-made cars, Volvo, for their XC60, they simply moved their production to Europe. Problem solved, at least for Volvo. Global product tariffs. When tariffs apply to entire product categories, companies cannot simply relocate. Instead, they either raise the prices or maybe take a hit on the innovations. Let's take an example from Trump last term. The 2018 tariffs on imported washing machines.
I am taking action to impose safeguard tariffs on imported residential washing machines.
The prices jumped by 12%, not just for washing machines, but also for dryers. Yes, even though the dryers weren't subject to the tariffs, while companies like LG and Samsung, as a consequence, invested in US factories and created about 2,000 jobs. The overall cost to the consumers was enormous. According to AER, American Economic Review, the increases in consumer prices translated into a total consumer cost of an additional $1.5 billion per year, or about $820,000 per new job. So here's how the development of prices looked like. Initially, the prices started to increase, and within 2 years period, we could see a decline. Right after the second year, pandemic hit, and we know what happened. Of course, there was inflation and the prices started to increase. But that's the interesting part. For the next 2 or 3 years, the prices still remain at a higher level, and they started to decrease right once the tariffs expired. This means more competition forced the prices to go down. I'll let you interpret this part, but I see here tariffs holding the prices much higher. Now, if that's what happened with washing machines, imagine what would happen with cars. The high cost of Trump's car tariff. To understand why these tariffs could have such a massive impact, let's break down the numbers. In 2024, the US imported around 7.6 million cars, worth around $219.5 billion. That means on average, each car cost about $28,500. Now add a 25% tariff, and that's an extra of $7,145 per car. But that is just scratching the surface. Let's dive deeper to get the full picture. The major car exporters to US are Mexico, South Korea, Japan, Canada, and Germany. making up about 93% of US car imports. From sedans to trucks, vans to SUV, these countries supply a wide variety of vehicles. But here is where it gets interesting. US automakers like General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler will be hit hard because a lot of their popular models like Silverado, Equinox, Mach-E, Challenger, Charger, and Ram trucks are all produced in Mexico and Canada. German brands like Audi and Porsche, which export exclusively from factories overseas, will face a major challenge. For sure, some companies like BMW and Mercedes already have US production plants and can shift some manufacturing here, but shifting production isn't that simple. The automotive supply chain is extremely complex and the industry relies on just-in-time production approach. That means every part, every piece has to come in at the right time, in perfect harmony with the entire production system. I'm not an economist, but I would like to understand the potential impact of tariffs on different car models. So for this, I have picked 35 models which are being produced in different countries, for example, Mexico, Canada, South Korea, and Germany. And these belong to all different types of cars, for example, SUVs, trucks, sedans, as well as vans and EVs. So my starting point was to first find out the minimum trim specification and list out in ascending order their manufacturer suggested retail prices. My second approach was to understand what will be the dealer markup. For this, I've done my research and I found out that the dealers are typically charging from $1,000 to $2,000 for a normal economy car. And from there on, I estimated the invoice cost. So the invoice cost is the cost on which the car is being imported. It includes the production cost of the manufacturers and some profit on top. And on the invoice cost, I added a 25% tariff, and these are the new prices. The minimum price difference on these cars will be $4,000, all the way it can go up to $28,000. On GM Silverado, on the minimum trim, the price could go up to $8,900, whereas for Toyota Corolla, we can expect the prices could go up to $5,500. But these are the minimum trims. Let's see what's going to happen in the maximum trim prices. For Toyota Corolla, the price difference will be around $7,000, but for Silverado, one could be expected to pay up to $16,000. And if we consider the most expensive car on this, Porsche Taycan, for its maximum trim, one would expect to pay up to $55,000.
Buyers will hesitate to purchase new cars and there will be a surge in demand for used cars, just like we saw during the pandemic. And speaking of used cars, let's take a look at what happened last time prices spiked. From 2014 to 2020, used car prices increased by just 16% or about 2.6% per year. But from 2020 to 2022, prices skyrocketed by 85%, a staggering 42% per year. Although prices have since come down slightly, they are still much higher than pre-pandemic levels. And another shock like this could send them soaring again. This isn't just about getting cars expensive, the entire market will feel the ripple effect. The hidden impact, auto parts and supply chain. Often overlooked aspect of these tariffs is how they impact auto parts. Many components from raw material until final product cross borders multiple times before the final car is assembled. Previously, these parts were exempt from duties, but under the new tariff structure, they will not be. Here is a very nice example from BBC for manufacturing of connecting rods of the piston. It's a 5-stage process until final assembly, and during this, the connecting rod is imported twice in US, first from Canada and afterwards from Mexico. In general, that means higher manufacturing costs, more expensive repairs, and increased vehicle maintenance expenses for consumers. What is the end goal of Trump, and will there be retaliation? On paper, Trump tariffs aim to bring auto manufacturing jobs back to US, reduce trade deficits,
strengthen America's leverage over trade partners. However, the bigger concern isn't just retaliation, it's just over time these trade partners
might try to reduce their dependence on US, leading to long-term consequences.
But here's where it gets interesting. Could there be another motive behind these tariffs? One possible motive could be to devalue the dollar. A weaker dollar would make US products cheaper for foreign buyers, potentially boosting exports and helping US reduce the trade deficit. However, this strategy comes with risk. A weaker dollar could lead to higher inflation as the cost of imports rises, hurting US consumers. If it doesn't work as expected, if exports don't increase as much or other countries don't devalue their currencies too, it could damage the economy or even triggering a recession. Additionally, a loss of confidence in the US dollar could cause it to lose trust and value as the global reserve currency. Another potential reason for the tariffs could be to block Chinese automakers from entering the North American market.
Chinese brands like BYD, Zeekr, and NIO have been aggressively expanding globally. Canada recently slapped a 100% tariff on these Chinese EVs, following the US strategy, effectively blocking their entry. If Mexico were to follow the suit, the entire North American market would be closed off to Chinese manufacturers. BYD has a small presence in Mexico, and there were news of expansion plans, but recently they have taken a step back. Conclusion: who really pays? Trump's 25% tariff is being framed as a win for American workers. But history tells us that consumers bear the biggest burden. New car prices will jump by thousands of dollars until in a few years when the production is localized, along with auto parts and repairs, which will also become more expensive. American manufacturing may not see long-term benefits, but I hope for the best. So in my opinion, the end consumers might not see the benefit immediately, but only time will tell after a long-term period have passed by if these tariffs really help.
By building here, otherwise they'll build, if they did them in Taiwan to send them here, they'll have 25% or 30% or 50% or whatever the number may be someday. It'll go only up.
So if you found this video insightful, please like the video and share it and subscribe to my channel. And also in the comments below, I will share a link to my newsletter if you want to remain updated with the latest automotive news and trends. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.